Welcome everyone, StealthyShiroean here, and today I'm bringing you my review of the Humble Choice Bundle for July 2022. It's a new month of games, and a new channel? Yeah, I'll explain that a bit more later. As for this month, it didn't immediately pique my interest much, but there is definitely some fun to be had. Let me know what you think of this month's bundle in the comments below, be sure to check the timestamps for specific games, and stay tuned for my final thoughts in the end. Okay, let's get to the review. Starting off the review is Atom RPG Trudograd, which is a CRPG set in post-apocalyptic Russia, and it's also a standalone, sorta sequel, sorta expansion to the original game Atom RPG. I really wonder why the first game wasn't the one bundled this month rather than this title. Maybe to get people to go out and buy the first one? Setting my cynical thoughts aside, I can't really say much to the quality of this game. It's definitely something that I'd need to put in a few hours to get a feel for if it's fun or not. At first everything seemed hard to follow since it uses the same character from the previous game. There is an intro that I'm pretty sure is recalling things that would have happened in the first game had I actually played it. Unfortunately, with little to no context, none of the choices I made really mattered to me. There is some voice narration, but for the most part it's a lot of reading, so if that's not something you're a fan of, then you might want to steer clear of this one. However, it did seem like all the dialogue was unique to each character, so that was a huge plus. The rest of the presentation and gameplay seemed fine to me. Nothing was absolutely horrible, but there wasn't anything amazing either. I could see myself playing this, but in my growing backlog, especially with backlog CRPGs, this one is going to be far down on my list to play. Next up, we have Yes Your Grace, which is described as a kingdom management RPG. Players need to manage the affairs of the realm and assist everyone from noble lords to lowly peasants, and don't forget your family. As king, it's your job to meet with the people coming into court and address their problems. You'll need to decide how to spend the kingdom's limited resources each week, and the game forces the player to start making hard choices right away. It becomes difficult trying to protect the realm and appease everyone. I imagine it becomes even harder as the game progresses. In between the king's sessions in court, he'll go out into the castle and manage the family side of things with conversations with his daughters and wife. Each of these characters felt like they had their own distinct personalities, and as a player, I wanted to try my best to take care of his family. But at what cost to the kingdom? I really like these tough decisions, and I see myself coming back to finish this one really soon. Banners of Ruin is a deck-building card battling game similar to Slay the Spire. In this game, players move their party through the streets of Dawn's Point to overthrow tyranny? I'm not really sure. I think it's said in the beginning cutscene, but ultimately that doesn't matter much compared to the gameplay. Players have 3 paths to choose, each with various scenarios that result in upgrading your deck in some way, affecting health, and of course combat. Fighting plays out over a series of turns, with the players spending their stamina on cards they want to play. Banners of Ruin uses multiple party members that have their own resources to spend on cards. Along with that, they also have their own equipment that can influence the card's overall damage and even what cards each character can use, such as if it's a card specific to the weapon they are holding. There are also 2 ranks in combat, which adds some strategic depth when using cards that move heroes or enemies around. I haven't played much of Slay the Spire to say which is actually better, but I'm betting that if you're a fan of Slay the Spire, then you'll more than likely find some fun here. I'm not the biggest fan of deck building games, especially single player ones, but I could see myself coming back to this at some point. Lawn Mowing Simulator. I don't know if Humble was scraping the bottom of the barrel with this one, or they wanted a game that was kind of season specific. Maybe both. Either way, I'll say straight up that I don't think many will find any fun here. I'm not even sure who the target audience really is. I suppose if you like monotony and riding back and forth in a game with little else but the steady whir of a mower engine, then this is probably the game for you. But otherwise, just don't even bother with this one. I don't even think lawn mowing enthusiasts would be that interested in it. I used to work in landscaping, but I don't proclaim myself an expert at all because honestly, all I did was what I was told. But I still felt there were elements this game lacked from what I remember doing. There's no edgers, leaf blowers for cleanup, no push mowers, and no really large mowers with the side wings. Or really any other yard tools you might expect yourself needing. I was also really surprised that I didn't need to bother with nice mowing lines either. Maybe all that is getting too realistic, and I shouldn't expect so much from a game not made from a AAA studio. At the same time, I can't help but feel that it may have added a bit more to this very lackluster game. Honestly, you'd probably find more enjoyment and satisfaction by going out and mowing your own lawn. We have another roguelite with a unique spin with Legend of Keepers. Here it blends elements such as Darkest Dungeon combat and some light dungeon management mechanics to keep pesky heroes away from the treasures within. Players control a master who acts as the dungeon's boss and have to plan out each room by populating them with traps and monsters. To aid with this, the game informs players what party of heroes is coming into the dungeon so they can make appropriate choices. It was fun deciding different layouts, and the game seems to constantly give you something new to play with so you could try out different combinations. There are different damage types to whittle the hero's health down, but the heroes also need to worry about their mental strain as well. I found it really satisfying shattering these heroes' weak sanity. Maybe it has something to do with the many times being on the receiving end in Darkest Dungeon. Anyway, in between each dungeon there are different events that happen each week that the players can choose to upgrade their minions and traps or gain more resources in a very similar vein to the previously discussed Banners of Ruin. It was a fun time in the opening hour, and I commend the devs for trying something different with the genre. Legion Tower Defense 2 is a competitive tower defense game that is a sequel to a popular Warcraft 3 mod. I never played that mod, but I thought that this game was fairly unique in how it's played. Each game has the player defending their 2 lanes, although I only ever had to defend one since I never got far enough. In these lanes, you place down fighters that come from one of 8 different factions. The opponent also does the same, and the both of you need to fight off waves of enemies the game itself produces. However, each player can affect the other person's wave by purchasing mercenaries to spawn in with each new wave. In fact, they're encouraged to do so because it's the only way to raise their gold income per wave. In order to purchase said mercenary, the player has a second resource that is increased by using gold to hire workers. It's a clever system that probably sounds confusing in words, but it makes sense in-game. I liked how the game's tutorials walks you through the mechanics and tells players not to worry about the numbers so much, but about the proper strategy in using the right kinds of units to clear the waves based on their types. I think it still is a lot to take in, and I don't think I'll be a player to give this proper time to get really good, but it's definitely one for someone who is really into tower defense games. Second to last in the bundle is Necromunda Hired Gun, which is a first-person shooter set in the world of Warhammer 40k. It blends looter-shooter elements and fast-paced gunplay. I'm not sure how well it does this with the grind for loot, but the gameplay felt solid in my first hour. Combat was fairly straightforward as far as the guns were concerned, but being early on is probably the reason for a lack of variety. Although, the game has a parkour system as well that makes extended shootouts an exercise in flitting around to break cover and reposition for better shots. I thought it was fun, but some might find this a jarring experience. There's also a bionic system where you can make upgrades to your own cybernetic implants as well as install some to your loyal Mastiff. These upgrades can improve damage and provide new abilities to use in combat. I found the story to be a bit hard to follow. Warhammer 40k is a well-established franchise, and it didn't seem like Necromunda does that much to ease unversed players, such as myself, into its deep world and lore. Fans of the franchise may find this one to their liking, but I imagine many fans have already decided whether or not it was worth playing. This was a fun shooter with some rough edges, but I can see myself coming back to it at least to give it a few more hours to really decide if it's something I'd want to finish. July's headliner for the month is Deep Rock Galactic, which is a cooperative shooter where players take the role of sci-fi dwarf miners. It's a similar experience to something like Left 4 Dead in that players are fighting through each level's hordes of enemies. Deep Rock Galactic takes us a bit further as other modern Left 4 Dead-like co-op shooters have done, and has 4 different classes to choose from that offer varied gameplay with their own kits. I only played as the Gunner, who was a tankier character with a shield generator that I kept forgetting to use, and a chain gun. However, Deep Rock goes even further by offering procedurally generated levels and the ability to destroy them. You'll need to in order to mine out new passages and collect valuable minerals necessary to complete each mission. I think that was one reason why I actually stayed away from this game until now, because I thought this would make level exploration a bit confusing. Deep Rock makes it a lot easier with a very helpful 3D map tool, and each class has their own traversal methods as well. The game gives you a controllable AI companion to help solo players through levels, which was really appreciated. Not sure how viable it is on harder difficulties, but the little robot made mining things a lot easier. I enjoyed this game a lot and can't wait to come back to it with some co-op partners. Okay, let's wrap this up and see if this bundle is worth it or not. I based my rating solely on whether I thought the game was worth playing on about an hour or so of hands-on gameplay. Overall, July's bundle feels like it was a lukewarm month to me. As headliners go, Deep Rock Galactic is definitely a strong contender in terms of quality, but I also imagine it's not what everyone expects when they think of a headlining game. And to that I'd say, I'd like a AAA blockbuster hit to be a headliner every month too, but that's just not reality. That being said, many of the games didn't really make any big splashes for me either. And before we get into the recommendations, I'll address the reason behind a new channel. And that reason is because I moved to another country, as many of you know, and when I did, I basically lost access to my Google account with no way to recover it. To give you the short version of the story. So, all future content will go here. I have some ideas in mind for rebranding, but for now I stuck with the same name and logo for recognition, and because YouTube let me for some reason. So, if you were subscribed before and would like to remain subscribed, then yeah, here's a reminder. Thanks for the understanding, and sorry for the inconvenience. Anyway, on to the recommendations, starting at the top with the must-plays of the month. Those are Deep Rock Galactic and Yes Your Grace. Deep Rock Galactic easily makes its place in the must-play section because of its unique spin to this kind of co-op shooter. I also love the atmosphere and immersion the game had, which really grounded me in the grimy sci-fi mining setting. Yes Your Grace blends tension, story, and resource management very well. I know it won't be everyone's cup of tea, but it had been something on my wish list for a long while, so I already knew what to expect going in. Following that are my strong recommendations, which are Necromunda Hired Gun, Legend of Keepers, and Banners of Ruin. Necromunda has some issues, and I guess even more if you look at some of the reviews. However, I had fun with this game, and it felt like it had some pretty solid gameplay for a fast-paced FPS. Legend of Keepers has a good mix of strategy with the dungeon planning and turn-based combat, making it kind of unique within the genre. Banners of Ruin may seem like a Slay the Spire clone, but I'd probably guess that Slay the Spire enthusiasts would find enjoyment with this one as well, or anyone who likes deck-building games. For my week recommendations this month, I put Legion Tower Defense 2 and Atom RPG Trudograd. Legion Tower Defense 2 plays like a very well thought out tower defense game, however, it's also something that I know I would never be able to give the time to really enjoy the strategic depth it has to offer. Atom RPG Trudograd is kind of in a similar problem, being that I just don't have enough time to really determine how good the game is. Although, if the writing wasn't amazing enough to capture me in the first hour over other games that can, well then, that's pretty much why it's a week recommendation. But that doesn't mean don't bother with it, which is reserved for only one game this month, being Lawn Mowing Simulator. I know there's a market for these niche simulator games, and I know that I also don't fit into that market. I can't help but feel that this game could have had so much more to it than what is actually here though. That wraps up my thoughts on this month's bundle. Definitely not the greatest of months, but it wasn't horrible either. Do you agree with my thoughts? What games, if any, are you looking forward to playing? Let me know what your thoughts are, or if there are any different recommendations you'd make in the comments below. I hope this video helped you in some small way, and if it did, then please consider leaving a like, comment, subscribe, or whatever it is you feel like doing. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.